I watched the full video from Bashar on November 23rd, where he addressed what Bashar said about the upcoming election. And the quote for what he said about the upcoming election, which has now in the past, because it's November 26th when I'm making this video, is that the female will lead to open contact and the male will lead to World War III and the termination of the United States. That's the exact wording that was used. And a lot of people had a lot of big feelings about it. So Bashar last Saturday came on to address those concerns and explain why they said these things because Bashar is an entity, not just one person, right? When they said something about our politics or our world at large energetically, because they don't usually comment on those things. So Bashar said that the election message was simply an observation of the current energy. It wasn't a prediction. And Bashar said this in the original thing where he said what the female would lead to and what the male will lead to. That's not a prediction. It's a prediction as much as me saying if you turn on the stove, that burner's going to get hot. That's not a prediction. That's a cause and effect of energy. That's this action results in this energy, and so this thing is going to happen. It was just a observation of the current energy. Okay. He said that the point was to accelerate the splitting of realities that were already underway. And what are all the videos that I've been making right before the election, right before I even knew all of this? You can go look for them yourself because they're on there. All the videos that I said about realities are starting to split and timelines are starting to smash down, right? And big timelines are starting to separate, and we're seeing a lot of these things. So I agree with that completely. I can see that as someone who can read energy. I can feel that. He said that there were a lot of reactions. There were two reactions, an imbalanced reaction and a balanced reaction. So an imbalanced reaction is somebody who their belief system then becomes triggered. Okay, so he said that because of these triggered reactions, those on the triggered reaction timelines have shifted their date for open contact just by a little bit. Haven't stopped it, but have shifted it a little bit. And stay with me to the end, because if you were triggered, that doesn't mean that you will end up on that timeline. You can still change. I will explain it as I go. So he said that the triggered people said that info was given that contradicts their belief, okay, their current belief, which is fine if you receive information that contradicts a belief that you have. He said those first reactions, those people said the delivery of the message was wrong, right? He didn't mean what he said, or he shouldn't have said what he said. Some also said there was an interference with delivery, like Daryl Anka was not actually channeling and it was just Daryl Anka's thoughts. Bashar has assured us that that is not the case, that the man Daryl Anka would have never said anything like this on a public platform. Okay. Now, I don't know him, Daryl Anka, obviously. I don't know who this person is, but I'm listening to Bashar because Bashar resonates with me as a source of truth. And if Bashar doesn't resonate with you as a source of truth, that's fine. I'm just offering a viewpoint, a perspective on this whole situation. Now, those were imbalanced reactions, right? To say, absolutely not. It's wrong. Something is off here. Something is fishy. I don't trust Bashar anymore. Those are triggered reactions. Instead of a balanced reaction, which would look like, that's interesting. I wonder why it was said that way. This is all out of Daryl's mouth when he was channeling Bashar. Another balanced reaction would be, is it possible that this means something other than what I think? Or a balanced reaction would say, my beliefs may be wrong. And that's when you just sit and you reflect and you go, are my beliefs wrong? Do I really believe these things? Why do I believe these things, right? What have I been talking about for a week and a half or 2 weeks now? That the calling of the collective is it's time to not only clear our shadows, but shift our limiting beliefs. Now is the time that we do that if you want to end up on this higher vibration timeline where open contact happens faster, moving into 5D happens faster, right? It's totally up to you. If you're not in a place where this makes sense, and if you're not in a place where you're ready yet to deal with your triggers, that's okay. You will then be in a place where you can safely deal with those triggers, where you can move through that energy, okay? It's just going to take you a little longer to get to the 5D or the open contact, and that's fine. Remember what I've said all along. One is not better than the other. Whether you're on the lower timeline or the higher timeline, I'm talking about vibration with lower or higher, one is not better than the other. It's just whatever you are ready for. Okay, so then he clarified that when he said the feminine will lead to contact and the male will essentially lead to World War III. He said he was talking about energy. Notice he didn't say people's names, and that is something that I've been saying, and a lot of other spiritualists have been saying all along. He did not mention Kamala, he did not mention Trump. He said the female will lead to this, the male will lead to that. He was simply talking about energy, and he said it in the way he said it on purpose to stir the pot a little bit, right? To get, what did he say, accelerate the splitting of those realities that are already underway, because we are getting this moving, we're getting this going, okay? So he said, he could have said, this is what he said. He's like, I could have said that the feminine will lead to contact and the male will not, but this is not the full picture. It's not as accurate, and I wanted to give you the full information, and you got to choose what you wanted to do with it, because that's free will, baby, right? Giving you all the information, and then you choose what to do with it. He said both options will lead to contact eventually, but you will get there in very different ways for different reasons through different styles, okay? Because the feminine, the divine feminine, if you lean into more of the feminine energy, which is the divine feminine movement, which is what we are in right now, that leads to open contact on more of a like opening, welcoming kind of energy, right? It's out of a desire. Whereas if you choose to follow the masculine timeline, one is not better than the other, it's just whatever matches your energy. If you choose to follow the masculine timeline, then that will lead to open contact, but in a way that extraterrestrials will need to step in at some point and stop the madness, right? So very different reasons, very different ways, very different styles, both lead to open contact. He also said, contact is inevitable. We have crossed the threshold. We've tipped the scales. It's happening, okay? He said that late 2026 to early 2027 for open contact is still very possible because we are all still able to choose our own timelines. He said within 5 years for open contact is what he's been saying for a little while, and that's still possible even for the lower frequency, okay? So basically, you get to decide what timeline do you want to be on, whether you're on the lower or the higher right now, which one do you want to be on, right? Where do you want to go vibrationally? If you are not ready for the higher timeline, if this is too much for you and you have more stuff to work through, then babes, be on the lower timeline, work through the stuff, right? Give yourself the space to work through the stuff, okay? Remember, this is all a play. This is all a play. It's like a hologram, it's like a video game, whatever you want to say, okay? This is your opportunity to work through your stuff. All right. He said, this is a quote, "You will experience it in whatever way you have created your reality to be based on," open contact, "whether out of love or out of fear," end quote. Okay, we're talking about open contact here. He said the contact itself will not in any way, shape, or form be fearful. That's also a quote, actually, that it will not be fearful. Now, if you're on the lower timeline, you can get to open contact because you are on a timeline that eventually leads to fear, right? Or if you started on that timeline because of fear, etc., you still get to open contact, but the actual event itself of open contact in no way, shape, or form will be fearful. He said, but the style of the contact will take its cue, meaning if you're on the higher vibration timeline, the style of contact will be like, yes, we're ready for it. Growth, baby, feminine, divine feminine movement. If you're on the lower timeline, it's extraterrestrials are stepping in and saying, stop, we're not doing this anymore, right? Two different paths. Quote from Bashar, "There are many things going on behind the scenes on your planet. Some are positive, some negative," end quote. What have we been saying since the election? That all this shenanigan stuff has been going on behind the scenes. And although 11/15 has come and gone, and we have heard about a few things that have definitely happened when the veil was lifted on 11/15, things that I've predicted, as well as many other psychics and intuitives out there, doesn't mean we hear all of it yet, right? Some are negative, some are positive. There's a lot of things going on behind the scene. Even Bashar knows this. I'm going to make a second video.